Want some dirt? Maybe we should look at the Peter Slipper case and see what's going on there now. The Commonwealth is now arguing before the federal court that James Aspey colluded with another member of Peter Slipper's staff, another press secretary, to undermine their boss, in effect, Peter Slipper, and to promote Mel Brough, and that Steve Lewis from the... they're implying, or probably saying, that Steve Lewis from News Limited was all part of that plot. Let's hear from the Attorney-General, Nicola Roxon.
Our application that this was an abusive process goes to the fact that a number of other participants, other than the applicant, were party to formulating this complaint with the clear intention of publicising it before it was filed, with the clear intention of harming Mr Slipper and advantaging his political opponents. There is active involvement of at least one person from the media. Those issues will all get aired and tested in the hearing.
So is she implying there that in Steve Lewis's case that he wasn't just a recipient of information, as journalists will be, but he was in some way colluding with Aspey in the sort of creation of the story?
Well, look, I'm a News Limited employee, and Steve Lewis is a good friend and esteemed colleague of mine, so I'll make that declaration up front. I do think that she seemed to be implying something like that, although she was being very careful about it. But what worries me really about all of this is that the Attorney-General, the first law officer of the land, is out essentially prosecuting her case in public, criticising others for having done so as well, when there's legal proceedings on foot. And I think that raises some genuine questions. I mean, we're constantly being told by politicians that they can't talk about this or that because it's, you know, there's an inquiry underway or there are court proceedings on foot, and suddenly this one's okay to talk about.
She was quite cautious though in her approach.
Well, cautious in a sense, but she was asked about that very issue, Mark, and her answer was, "Well, I'm simply repeating what the arguments had been in court." She was in Melbourne. The court case had been in Sydney. So, but what I'm amazed by here, or surprised by, is the confidence with which they're now talking about this case. I mean, we were saying a few weeks ago, Barry, that I was hearing that that the government expected this to be wrapped up by August. Now, I think that there is a growing expectation that it will be wrapped up in the next few weeks.
And that Peter Slipper will return to the speakership.
That's the expectation from some people in government.
Well, let's hear what Anthony Albanese had to say as well. He went a little further than Nicola Roxon. Here he is.
What occurred during Watergate was that people attempted to obtain information in a way that wasn't legal and wasn't appropriate. So, you know, it is also the case that took a while for the facts to come out. We need to be very careful about the media playing a role in which they confuse the issue of whether they're reporters or participants. That is a very important issue, and certainly I think that will be looked at further.
So again, he's making that point that Steve Lewis is in some way a player in all of this. They have phone records, they have some text messages. We don't know what they say.
They haven't been put to the court yet. They're going a lot further in these comments, or the implications of their comments, than what is so far being put to the court.
Which suggests that they, as you say, have some level of confidence about it. But he's a bit confused about Watergate, surely. I mean, that was about official corruption being exposed by the media, not the other way around.
I think he meant that the breaking the burglary was not really the way to get the information.
He could have just called that illegal, as he did, rather than adding that weasel word, or appropriate.
And look, the other thing to say about it, this important thing, is that this suggestion that people knew about the alleged behaviour of the Speaker in his office and so forth, and that there was discussions between a number of people prior to it coming out, that is not in and of itself evidence of anything.
No, but what was curious about it, and right from the start it was, that the course that Aspey took, that he went to the media and he went to the police before he actually approached the Speaker. And you would think that if you felt that you were in some way being harassed, you would approach the person and say, listen, this is not appropriate.
You would think that, although we all know that sexual harassment cases are often about abuses of power relations, and there may be some reason why that wasn't done in this case.
But then the text messages also came in for a little bit of examination at the time, because it did seem at times as if he was inviting a response from Peter Slipper.
And I've been wondering whether that's why there's they want the full 40-page document and his full statement of claim, and whether indeed that we might find out this week in the government's affidavit that they've got some sort of history that has been incomplete up until this point. Which, I mean, look, the whole thing's been very mysterious and strange from the start. So I don't think anything will surprise us here.
It's also unusual to go taking a civil action in court before you actually go on to the employer, which in this case I imagine is the Department of the House of Representatives and so forth, and seeing how you go there, and didn't use the harassment clauses in the Act. Instead went across for a civil action in this court.
Yeah. Steve Lewis wrote in April that this was going to be an explosive courtroom drama. I'm not sure whether you expected to be at the epicentre of the explosion, but that's the way it's shaping up.